In this video, I'm going to show you some companion plant examples in my Zone 6B garden. This video is especially for anyone who is looking for inspiration on what they can tuck into any gaps they might have in their garden, or for anyone who is feeling especially overwhelmed with the idea of companion planting and all of the different rules that are out there on what to plant with what and what not to plant with what, etc. It can get overwhelming quickly, so hopefully this breaks it down simply and makes you realize you really can do this. So the idea of companion planting is generally to form a polyculture of plants that help to get the biggest return out of an area and support the overall health of your plants to reduce your workload. This is done by growing plants together that support each other by playing to each other's strengths and weaknesses. When companion planting, you want to consider if a plant can deter pests, bring in predatory bugs for pest management, or attract pollinators, feed the soil, either by fixing nitrogen or by providing living mulch, protect the soil as a ground cover or as a living mulch, or shade cool weather plants or support vining plants. So there are a lot of different functions a companion plant can bring into different plantings, and you want to consider what you're trying to get or what you could add to support any weaknesses you might see in a planting. Again, there are a lot of people that will tell you a laundry list of rules to companion planting. If your head is spinning like mine was, ignore everything you've been told and just start planting plants together and see what happens and learn from your mistakes and successes. That said, if you want inspiration, if you've got gaps in your garden that you are wondering what you might fill them with, here are some of the companion plantings I've got going in my Zone 6B garden. The first companion planting we'll talk about is my bed of amaranth, sunflower, Kentucky pole bean, and trombosino squash. The Kentucky pole bean can help with nutrient replenishment in the soil via nitrogen fixing. It can help fill in the trellis and provide some food for me. In this companion planting, we also have amaranth, which can serve as a trap crop for nearby tomatoes that are not in this bed but are in nearby beds. It can be mulch for otherwise bare areas of the bed. It can shade the soil so that it's not bare, and obviously it can provide me food. It's also supporting and standing next to the sunflowers, which can serve as a support behind the pole beans and the trombosino squash if they were to start to lean or move away from the garden arch. Not to mention, I love planting flowers into any gaps I have in my garden because they bring such beauty, and it is such an invitation to me to have a little garden wander and check on all of my plants. So I really go hard on flowers in my companion planting. Finally, I would say the star of this companion planting show is the trombosino squash. This is what I'm really trying to get a harvest out of. This variety of squash is said to be squash bug resistant, vine borer resistant, and will provide summer squash if I pick it in the early stage when it's green, or winter squash if I pick it as it's browning on the vine and then harden it off. So far, I've had no issues with pests on the trombosino squash, so I would say that this is proving to be true, but I also do tend to plant my squash pretty late in the season, also to help me with the squash bug and vine borer problems. So that is this companion planting. The next bed I have is of trombosino squash, romaine lettuce, nasturtium, sweet alyssum, calendula, and pepper plants. There's a lot going on in this tiny space, and I want to break it down so you know what's going on and how you might be able to leverage this kind of yield. First, we've got the nasturtium. It's serving as a trap crop for aphids to help keep them off of the pepper and tomatoes. It's also serving as a ground cover to help water stay in the bed and to prevent the soil from baking. This is essential so I'm not constantly watering my garden. I also really love nasturtium because I think it adds beauty to the bed. It softens the look of the cement blocks that I have forming the bed, and it is also edible. You can add it to salads, you can feed it to your chickens. It's a lovely snack. I have sweet alyssum tucked into different places in here. It attracts beneficial bugs that will eat pests. I've also got calendula, which is also a trap crop for bugs like aphids. You can see here the calendula is serving its purpose as a trap crop. You see all the bugs on the stem, and can deter other bugs that'll eat my tomatoes like hornworm. All of these flowers that I have in this bed are also edible or medicinal, and they make great chicken snacks. I've also got lettuce in the understory of the tomato and squash, and it's getting more shade than the taller plants. It's covering the soil to prevent too much exposure so that the dirt doesn't dry out, and it's also giving me food. I will say I do think the lettuce is on its last legs and will likely bolt soon, so I'll probably end up sowing some sweet alyssum to cover up the bare areas that it will leave behind. Next, we've got the tomatoes and peppers, are some of the main food crops in this bed. Technically, with companion planting, you're not supposed to plant these together because they can transmit diseases, but in my garden, blight and powdery mildew are inevitable, and I don't see a reason to separate these guys because they're both going to get them anyways. So I put them in the same bed. They're also both heavy feeders, so I am keeping that in mind in this bed too, and I'll probably need to do a little bit of extra work at the end of the season to repair the soil and add some nutrition back into the soil for growing next year. Finally, in this companion planting, I've got Trombosino squash growing in the small holes of the cement blocks on the edge. These are going up the garden arch. This is helping me make use of vertical space that might otherwise be ignored and adding such a high amount of food to this planting. So in this small bed, we've got tomatoes, peppers, lettuce, some edible and medicinal flowers, and squash. The final bed we'll talk about is a very typical companion planting of tomato, beans, calendula, and basil. The basil is said to help improve the flavor and health of the tomatoes, and if you were to try any kind of companion planting, this is probably the most basic one you can try. It also helps deter bugs that want to eat tomato plants like hornworms and whiteflies. And in this planting, I've got it in the kind of front, if you will, of the bed, so because it's much shorter than the next part of the companion planting, which is calendula, which is kind of that mid-story area of the bed. And that is going to help deter pests, give me cut flowers, and add beauty to this planting. And finally, behind that are the tomato plants, which are the main crop of this planting. And in between each tomato plant, there are 3, are pole beans, again, for helping replenish the soil, especially since I have heavy feeders in here, and for food. I will also say at the end of the season, because all of these beds are full and heavily planted out, I will also have a lot of mulch that I can chop and drop in these areas for healing the soil for next year's plantings too. So anything I haven't used or any parts of the plant that isn't sick or ill and is not food, obviously, can be sent back to the soil, which is really nice. I say that specifically here because I've got a megaton of basil that I'll probably chop and drop at the end of the season. Those are my companion plantings that I wanted to share with you today in my Zone 6B garden. I'd love to hear what your favorite companion plantings are, what you've tried so far, what hasn't worked in the comment section down below. And if you found this content helpful, enjoyable, entertaining, please give it a big thumbs up. And if you want more content like this, hit the subscribe button. And this is Zone 6B Gardening signing off.